All right. Welcome back. Saturday Sensei back on the wire. We made it another week. My friend out in Staten Island, and unfortunately, the New York team you root for did not make it, but at least there is one team repping NYC in the World Series, my friend. So
those powerful Yankees, Dodgers, how iconic, how classic, Andy, huh?
I know. The networks and the fans, everybody wanted it. So we'll see the battle of the payrolls. We'll see who wins out. So it should be. I'm hoping. Hopefully, it'll be a good series.
I hope so. It's a long wait. Friday.
Yeah, that's all right. But coastal games, you got to get all the superstars rest up. The network's got to put on a show, man. So you got to make sure everybody's healthy and ready.
They're hoping this pays for the entire season. This is going to be some ratings bonanza.
Yeah, hopefully it goes 6 or 7. And it's not done in 4. So.
Yeah, I hope so.
Anyhow, well, back to the more important topic at hand, college football, as we are now, again, tipping over about the halfway mark here. So I was just thinking about it, I don't know, earlier over the weekend when I was just looking at the sheet for this week and thinking about the topics. But it seems like just yesterday it was week 0 and we were live for the first time. And now we're over 2 months into it. So it's flown by, but it's been a ton of fun.
It has, and every week just a different storyline, Andy, different surprises, and the season's just unfolding unpredictably, and that's why we love this sport, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been a refreshing change with all the off-season additions and mix-ups, which I was you and I both were skeptical on, and some that you're still more skeptical on than I, perhaps. But I think the change has been good, and I think it certainly has brought an excitement and an anticipation of every weekend, more so than maybe the last few, and most certainly anticipation of who the final 12 will be to play for the national title. So
I think it's going to be an eclectic group.
Yeah, I think so. But we'll get into that next week, folks. A little foreshadowing Saturday Sensei. We'll talk about it a little later, but we will give you our expert picks on the 12 to make it, and then the final 4, and then we'll hold off and pick the semifinalists and the winners. Or I guess that will be the semifinal, the final 4. But we'll pick our winners later on in the season. But that'll be forthcoming in a future episode. But let's recap week 8, my friend. Let's start. Let's finish on the good. Let's start with the ugly. What did you have for the ugly in week 8?
The ugly in week 8. Let's take a look, Andy. There was a lot of ugly. And I didn't have a tough time getting the one that was really ugly, but it started off, Andy, on Thursday night. Thursday night was ugly, and it was a team that I think I texted you and said, I don't want them to show up on Saturday Sensei anymore. They've had like 3 or 4 Fugly Awards. And that's been Florida State losing to Duke 23-10.
Yeah. I didn't even. It sounds maybe terrible, but they're no longer eligible for my Fugly. Like we have to create a new category. I mean, it's been that bad. It's almost like you start to feel sorry for. Like when you're watching maybe the old Tyson fights, right? When Tyson used to pound guys into a pulp, but at some point you feel for the guy getting pounded on. So I've kind of left them off. But yeah, that was. I thought for a second there they may pull it off, but the Dukies were too much. So
and you were crowing about how there was going to be some sort of close game or upset in West Lafayette. And Oregon blanks them 35-0.
Yeah. The Boilermakers did not pull their late September, early October all blackout uniform upset of a top-ranked team. A little slow to start that game, but Oregon, I think they probably could have put up 60 or 70. So I think they paced themselves as they got going. But
so that was ugly, Andy. And another ugly game was one that me and you were debating whether they were a contender or a pretender. And I said to you, Andy, they're a pretender. And you said, Mark, you don't know your facts. You don't know your data. These guys were great last year. They were great the year before. I said, Andy, it's 2024, Andy. And
yeah,
AMU loses to Georgia Southern 28-14. Ugly, ugly, ugly.
yeah, 2 weeks in a row they've lost. I saw that, but that certainly that takes them out of the contention for being a group of five in the CFP, but still 4-2, not terrible. So I'd still say they're not a contender for the title, but certainly from a conference standpoint, they're still in it. I had I don't know if you watched any of the game or watched the highlights, but Mizzou's win over Auburn was terrible. That was just to me the definition of ugliness among two what should have been relatively higher powered offenses. The game was 3-3 at the beginning of the second half. Auburn's averaged almost 450 yards of total offense this season, believe it or not. And they were held to under 300 on Saturday. And Missouri only had just 2 lone rushing TDs and 2 field goals, right? So that game ended up, I think it was 21-19, but it was just what should have been, probably going back a few weeks, a pretty high flying and anticipated game. It was just a bit of a dud, I thought it would have been in the category of kind of what we saw from Miami and Louisville last weekend, Baylor, Texas Tech, kind of high shooting, high scoring, but it didn't do it. So Mizzou won, but in a bit of an ugly fashion for me. So
I felt that way too, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How about
I watched that game.
What's that?
I watched that game, and the only good that came out of that game was in the beginning. I told you that there was a great wide receiver in the fab freshman, Cam Coleman.
Yeah.
This guy is built like Randy Moss. He's tall, lanky. He's a Gumby.
Yeah.
And this guy, he's going to be a great pro. He caught a 75-yard touchdown from the quarterback in that game. I was watching the game, but it was painful to watch.
Yeah. The first half was just it was like watching paint dry. But so what about the fugly? What was the fugly of the week for you?
For me, the fugly of the week, Andy, was South Carolina over Oklahoma. And Oklahoma, again, I text you and said,
abysmal.
They're banned.
Yeah.
Florida State, banned. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, banned.
That was bad. What was the final score of that game? Did they only score 3 points or something?
I think what I have here is 34-3, Andy.
Yeah, they only got a field goal. And I'm pretty sure I saw yesterday, either yesterday or Sunday, they fired their offensive coordinator. So
really?
Yep. Yeah, they fired him pretty quickly after that game. And if you go back, Texas, they scored, what was it, 7 or 10? Not even. I don't even think they got a touchdown in that game. I think it was just field goals in that game. So their offense was this year has been a bit Iowa-like last year under Ferentz's son. So obviously Venables is looking for a change, but yeah, that was a bad performance. Good on USC though. Strong performance by the Gamecocks.
Yeah, and they played well the week before against Bama. They almost beat Kentucky the week before. They beat Kentucky. I'm not sure. These SEC games, Andy, it's just one after the other. It's just a wonderful league. But you know what? When I look at the Pac-12 against a Big Ten team or a Pac-12 team against the SEC team, you know what stands out? Speed. These former Pac-12 teams, they are fast.
Yeah. Well, that was the name of the game, between the Pac-12 and the spread offense and just athleticism from a speed standpoint. And then the SEC is just, to me, all around athletes on both sides of the ball, like just purely athletic, whether you're in the trenches or you're playing the defensive backfield on the offensive side of the ball. It's just athletes all around. And that's pretty clear when you see them play out of conference, right? Well, a big fugly for me, team near and dear to my heart, my friend, but Trojans blowing a 21-7 halftime lead to Maryland and losing that game. Unbelievable.
I did
Unbelievable.
see some of it. It was a back and forth in the first half. And then, I don't know, the second week in a row, that happened in the Penn State game. Third. They got to let someone go over there, Andy.
I know. So they it was 21-7, so they were, kind of in the driver's seat at halftime, but they allowed 2 touchdowns in the final 10 minutes in their the 3 possessions. They had they missed a field goal. I think it was blocked. They had a turnover on downs and then punted to Maryland and allowed 2 tuds. And I would say that Lincoln Riley is officially on the hot seat now. If they don't become bowl eligible, I think for certain that conversation needs to happen. And even if they are bowl eligible, it'll be some random bowl and clearly under delivering once again. So it'll be interesting to see. I think, given the money and the hype that they paid him, he probably gets another season, but another year like this next year. And I think he'll be walked out the door, but really disappointing.
I'm
Really
anxious to see how many bowl eligible games there really are now, because 6 of the bowls will be taken up or more, right, with this playoff format.
Yeah.
Could be maybe 12 of the bowls, right?
Yeah. Well, but I think they're creating new ones because even, IU, I believe IU was the first bowl eligible team. They were the first team to get to 6-0.
Okay.
Army was 6-0 last week. This week they're 7-0. So it's still 6 wins in your bowl eligible. Now, does that mean you're guaranteed a bowl? We'll have to look at the lineup when we do kind of our predictions, perhaps, of what's available. But anyhow, so those are the fuglies for the week. How about the bad? What you had in the bad category?
I had a bunch of bads. I had the Mizzou game as bad because, to your point, it's a matter of degrees, right?
Yep.
So to me, that wasn't as ugly as the uglies, but it was bad, right?
Yeah.
I thought Whiskey beating Northwestern 23-3 was a dud, like you were saying. Iowa, I can't even say it on the station. Right, against Michigan State, 32-20.
Yeah.
And you know what? That Georgia-Texas game, that was a bad game, Andy. They benched the starting quarterback and put in a young kid, and he got 8 yards passing, and then they take the kid back out.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. What about you? What did you think was bad?
Well, I'm going to the same game, Texas, Georgia, but I'm going to go with the Zebras, man. That call, the interference call, right? The PI call and the subsequent reversal in that game. After his Texas cornerback, Jahdae Barron had it resulted in an interception, in the red zone. And then after the fans became irate and started throwing stuff on the field, the officials huddled and reversed the call, and Texas scores 2 plays later. And again, granted, in the final scoreboard, it didn't matter, but I just thought it was, pretty poor form, and they probably should have enforced that original call or either issued a sideline warning or given Texas a 15-yard unsportsmanlike misconduct penalty because of the fans' behavior, right? But the fact that it went down that way, and it just looked, it clearly looked like it. They caved to the pressure, and so I just thought that was a bad look for that officiating crew. But we'll get to what a couple of my thoughts on that game when we move to our individual and team performances here in a bit. But if you're a Texas fan, that was it's a tough one to watch. How about the good? What was positive for you last week? What would you highlight? Who stood out?
There were 3 great games, Andy. 3 great games that were riveting.
Yeah.
And I think the first one, I know that you were traveling, but I was glued to the set. It was a back and forth, knock them down, slam them to the wall. Miami, Louisville.
Oh, yeah.
Two great quarterbacks, Andy. And they scored, what is it, 52, 48? It was a crazy game.
Yeah, I was actually at the Miami Ohio game, and I was tailgating and watching that on my phone and texting with my brother, who's a huge Canes fan. But wow, yeah, they're that Miami offense, I believe, is still. I have to look the stats this week, but I think they are the most efficient and prolific offense in college football, and just close behind them are the Hoosiers. But yeah, that game looked to be wild, man. In the second half.
But to your point, their offense is so efficient. It has to be because their defense is horrible. Louisville put up 48 points, right?
Yeah. Well, this is like the third is the third game in a row where Miami's held on by their fingernails, right? Virginia Tech, Cal, and now Louisville.
Exactly. So. And how many points was scored in each one of these games? I know the Cal game, they let up like 38 points, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
a game that was also very similar to this. I didn't like it because I didn't pick the winner, but I was shocked at such a bad team playing so well. UCLA beat Rutgers in another just back and forth, and it was just a wonderful game. And then ultimately, for me, the big ticket game of the week, and I just got to say that I picked the Vols, and I know you picked Bama.
Yeah, you did.
Was the Bama game. It wasn't that it was a great game. It was a close game. It was a lot of strategy. There was a lot of good defense. It was well played. It just wasn't as spectacular as the Miami Louisville.
Yeah. I didn't catch much of that Bama Vols game. Just given the weekend, but I was again following it on the phone, and I thought for a second there, I thought Bama was going to pull it out, and then the Vols came back late. But for me, I had three games I highlighted and three teams in particular. Hoosiers, man, our brethren, and perhaps our role models or aspirations. The college game day making an appearance down in Bloomington this coming weekend for the Huskies taking on the Hoosiers.
This weekend game day is in Bloomington.
Yeah, it's in Bloomington.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Hoosiers put up 56 and almost 500 yards of offense last weekend. Now the quarterback went out with a thumb injury in the second half and didn't play much. I think he's going to be out for Washington. They say he might be back in the first weekend in November, and I believe that may be when Michigan's coming to town. But they're not going to have him this weekend, so it'll be interesting to see how that offense responds without him under center. But Hoosiers still racking it up. They, like I said, they're the second, or I think they were like 0.2 maybe or 0.1 points behind Miami in terms of average points per game, but they're right up at the top. So their offense continues to roll under Signetti and the folks, the kids, the weapons he brought from James Madison. The other game I had was Baylor Bears heading into Texas Tech and handing Texas Tech their first Big 12 loss. Right, there were only 3 undefeated teams in the Big 12 going into Saturday night, and Texas Tech is no longer on that list, but Baylor put up 59 points and 530 yards of offense and just pounded the Red Raiders. So that was a little surprising. I wasn't sure that was going to happen, but I thought Texas Tech would handle them. And then the final one, I was giving our boy Shotgun Steve a lot of grief, man, but the Cyclones took it right down to the wire. The first weekend or the first set series of games I backed them on, they almost let us down. But Rocco Becht, there's a football name for you, Rocco.
Anthony Bent's kid, the tight end from the Jets.
Yeah, Rocco Becht. He ran it was a one yard shove with about 30 seconds left, and Cyclones went ahead. But he had Becht had over 370 yards of the Cyclones' 530 yards of total offense. So both on the ground and on the ground in the air, he led them. So the Cyclones still undefeated.
Over who, Andy?
What's that?
Who'd they beat?
They beat UCF.
Oh, yes.
They struggled to beat UCF, right? So
UCF.
that leaves Iowa State and BYU, the lone Big 12 teams, undefeated Big 12 teams. How about
You
that?
know, I liked UCF early on. Remember, I was backing them and I was taking them, and they played poorly. They must have had some game against Iowa State.
They did. Yeah, it was much closer than the West Virginia game, which I wouldn't have predicted that. So, anyhow, those are that's the good for the week, folks. The good, bad, the ugly, and the fugly for Saturday Sensei. How about individual or team performances on the offensive side of the ball? Who stood out to you?
Two, Andy. Two, and I'm gonna go back to that UCLA game. UCLA was 1-5, and their new head coach is the guy from the Kansas City, the running back offensive coordinator that no one wanted. Do we remember who that was?
What's that again?
The new head coach of UCLA.
Yep.
Is the offensive coordinator from the Kansas City Chiefs that no one wanted to be the head coach.
Bieniemy?
Eric Bieniemy. That's right, Eric Bieniemy. He's installed this great offense at UCLA. Their quarterback, Ethan Garbers, he was 32 out of 38, Andy, 383 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Deshaun Foster is a head coach at UCLA. What are you talking about, Bieniemy?
That's right. That is Deshaun Foster.
Yeah. I think Bieniemy is.
Where is he?
He's still at. I'm pretty sure he's still at Washington. Oh no, he's associate head coach. Is probably how you got that mixed up. So he's associate head coach and the offensive coordinator at UCLA. Yep. So he's not the head coach. He's the associate, and he's running the offense. So you are correct in terms of the offense he's installed. Still hasn't brought him a lot of victories, but nonetheless.
But you're right. That's why they kept showing him on the sideline.
Yeah.
Deshaun Foster, who's a former Bruin and a great running back there,
yep,
is the head coach.
Yeah, both of them are great running backs in college.
And then the second guy is Bryson Daly. I know we've had him many, many times. He had a game that was crazy, Andy. He was 31 rushes for 171 yards. He rushed for 5 touchdowns. He was 7 of 10 passing for 147 yards and 1 touchdown. These service academies, Andy, they're the real deal. You were right. You called this from the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. There was a stat last week that there are 3 offensive linemen for Army that are the highest rated in the country for their position across all teams. Wow. Not just service academies or not the American Athletic Conference, all teams, all conferences. So, and then another stat I saw today. So take a guess at what the average 1 rep squat weight is for the offensive side of the ball for Army.
725 pounds.
These guys aren't Olympic weightlifters. I'm sure they appreciate your confidence. Still, not 700, 516 pounds, man.
Okay.
Average across the whole offense. Includes wide receivers, the quarterback, running back, and linemen.
Oh, I thought you were talking about just the offensive linemen.
No, the whole offense.
Okay, but the average is 515 or 5 whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I got to think that the offensive linemen for Army are squatting close to 600. Right,
probably 600, probably 600 or so, but still they're not squatting like 900, and the wideouts and the quarterback are squatting 300. They're probably in a relatively tight range, but nonetheless, you're right.
This guy Daly, how he's built, he looks like G.I. Joe. He's got the guns. He's a big guy, man.
I know. Well, they got we'll talk about it later on, but Navy's traveling out your way to East Rutherford, take on the Irish, and then Army goes to South Bend, I think in 2 weeks, maybe 3. So they'll get to take on the big boys. But I had offensive side. I had we'll go back to the one of the games I talked about in the offensive the the good side was Baylor's quarterback, Sawyer Robertson. He threw for a career high 5 touchdowns and he was 21 of 32 for 275 yards. So, he had, he diced up that Red Raiders defense and had a career performance. So good on him. And then we've talked about this, but Cam Ward, second half against Louisville. And this is Ward's 7th consecutive 300-plus yard passing game, which is a new school record. And he had 319 yards in the air. So he just continues to sling the ball around and has found a good home at Miami. Now, surprisingly, little sneakily, I was just checking out scores, but his own, where he transferred from, Washington State, they're at 6-1. So, they haven't, it's not as though they've faltered and dwithered away once Cam Ward has left, but he certainly has found a home in Miami. So, great weekend. Defensive side of the ball, this is a team award for me this week. Georgia, man. Georgia just dominated. I watched some of that game and watched, I think we got to watch, I don't know, a fair amount of the second quarter and into the second half, first part, the third quarter. And they were just flying around, and they referenced these statistics during the broadcast, and I had to look it up afterwards. But Georgia had 7 sacks in that game. And prior to that game, they'd only had 11 leading up to that game. They had 7 sacks, almost double the number of sacks in a single game that they had all year. And they created 4 turnovers that resulted in 17 points. And those stats on the defensive side of the ball, my friend, are really hard to overcome. I don't care what your last name is. Standing under center, tough wall to climb. So hats off to Kirby and the Dogs, man. You and I both were, and I think a lot of the nation were pretty convinced that Texas was they were heading and cruising towards that national championship game. But boy, he got those boys jacked up, and they looked like the Georgia Dogs that I think everybody anticipated and was the number 1 team in the country until Bama came around. But impressive performance.
I think they were prepared. They were well coached, and they executed. And hats off to Kirby.
Yeah, that's right. All right, folks, Saturday Sensei, that's a recap of week 8, heading into week 9. We're going to get into the hot topics of the week. First, we're going to cover some of coaching candidates, or candidates for coaches of the year. And in Mark and I's eyes, we'll talk few topics in the wacky world of college football. And then we'll get into our picks for week 9. So hang with us, take a break, and we'll be right back with our potential coaches of the year candidates. All right, we're back. Saturday Sensei, back at it, Mark. First topic for hot topics of the week. Top on the field drip in the game. On the sidelines, we're talking about some of the top performances so far this year, but the leadership provided by the coaches, the head coach, certainly often, particularly at the college game, I think dictates momentum shifts. And I don't think you see anything like it at the pro level, but halftime adjustments and just the impact of the head coach in the college game, I think is much more significant than what we see at the next level, which is why I'm a huge fan of the game, because you've got young kids that I think respond to certain type of leadership that is maybe a bit more emotional and gets jacked up. And I think with the right teams, you've got folks that are certainly the kids that are willing to listen and take direction of the coaches. But we've just got, if you're watching us, we got kind of 6 on the screen here to foster the conversation. 6 that we thought should be in that conversation. But what's your take, Mark? Anybody from your standpoint, either on the screen or not on the screen, that you think should be in the running this year?
So when I look at my half dozen, a few of them are on this screen, right? I got Kurt Cignetti of Indiana, right? I have Matt Campbell of Iowa State. I got Kalani Sitake of BYU. I got Brian Newberry of Navy. But you're missing two very well coached teams this year. One, I told you from the beginning, I was just in love with. I think they've been overachieving. They might win the ACC, and that's Pittsburgh and Pat Narduzzi.
Yeah, good call. Very good call.
And it's the other service academy and this guy Jeff Monken.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I figured we didn't have room for two service academies, so we give the nod to Navy. And
But
those that know your co-host know why that's the case. But we gave Newberry the nod over Monken. But yeah, we can't slight, certainly cannot slight Army's performance. But great call on Narduzzi. He's done a fantastic job at Pitt, and I think that I saw another stat or graphic I was looking at for program turnarounds of the year, and BYU and IU were both, and Pitt. Those three were in the graphic. So good call on Pitt. It's really good call.
so talk to me about the six pack you got up here.
Well, I think Newberry, right? I've been I've been watching the Army Navy game for as long as I can remember. I've been much closer to it the last few years, and the last couple years have been pretty rough to watch, my friend. Just in the Army Navy game, the last 2 years has been, albeit exciting, because they've come down to kind of the final few minutes, and I believe 2 years ago it was double overtime, but still just not super exciting to watch. But boy, it's shaping up to be a blowout fest and just a heavyweight slugfest. Potentially in the AAC championship. If we don't get that, we'll certainly get it in the annual Army Navy game. But got Newberry, Signetti. We talked about fantastic job at IU, and I think this is one where the persona and the confidence of the coach has transcended already the entire program and that AD's office and into the campus. Right? I mean, he is just really turning the belief and the passion and love for IU football around in very short order. Matt Campbell, again, we talked about it earlier. Only one or two teams left undefeated in the Big 12, certainly vying for a spot. A lot of the predictions I'm seeing has got them in the Final Four, has them winning the Big 12 and getting the automatic nod there. Kalani Sitake, the other undefeated team, BYU, doing a fantastic job out there out west. And then got Dan Lanning, I think little bumpy the first two games of the year, when they started out, but they clearly have, I think, found their stride. And he's just a great guy too, a great story, and comes from blue blood coaching lines coming up, and is doing a great job with the Oregon program. And then finally, I think Mario Cristobal deserves a little credit, my friend. His first couple years at Miami were not what everybody anticipated. And I'll go back to, I think we talked about it in a prior episode, but I think it was Lou Holtz that said if you don't have things turned around by year 3, they're probably not going to get turned around at that program by that coach. And to Mario's credit, he's figured it out and has that program rolling and bringing Miami back to what it used to be. So I think all these guys deserve to be in the conversation. It's still somewhat early, right? But we'll see where they finish. But I would venture to guess that if we put up Narduzzi on this screen, and then the head coach at Arizona State we talked about last week, right? If we had those 8 on the screen, my guess is one of those probably ends up as coach of the year, right?
I got to think that what we have is one of them will be in the mix for the winner. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Dan Lanning is building a program for the ages. I could see him staying there and being there until he hangs it up.
Yeah. He could have like a bit of a Saban esque type of era. Just being around the program and building it. Signetti's certainly doing that at IU. I think be interesting to see. Somebody I was texting back and forth with was just saying, well, I hope he stays, and you hope he does. It'd be great to see that program turn into a Big Ten contender and powerhouse and have somebody like him at the helm for a decade and really change the face IU, Indiana football. That would be outstanding. So we'll see what happens. I think probably a lot of it depends on what happens in the broader ecosystem of college football, right? If it does go to 2 conferences, and if they are, power conferences, or you hear about this new college football league with 70 teams, and what's in it for these guys, and where do they stand? But he's done a great job. But yeah, I think all these guys certainly deserve credit, and some have had harder work to do this year than others, but really turning their programs in the right direction. So good stuff, man. Good stuff. But all right, so that's college coaches of the year candidates. For those of you listening, feel free in the chat window and the message board on our social media pages. Just share your thoughts. Let us know what you think. Who you've got, who you support. Love to hear from the fans. So now let's get into the wacky world of college football to wrap up some of the hot topics of the week. And first up is the NCAA typically doesn't move quick on things, but they sure move like lightning on this closing this loophole on the 12th man rule there, Mark.
So, Andy, let's talk a little bit. We talked about it last weekend on how Oregon was trying to bleed out the clock, like we were saying, and that Lanning had exposed this loophole, and then 7 days later, an organization that moves like an elephant all of a sudden closes the loophole. Talk to me about this work.
Well, yeah, I mean, the other thing you got to ask yourself too is, like, of all the issues that have come up, right, with the NCAA, and we've had a number of them, right? We have them now, right, with NIL. We got the transfer portal. I forgot the young kid's name. It was last season or the season before. He transferred from one program. He went to North Carolina. He was, I think he was a linebacker, but he was transferring to be closer, I think, to his grandmother, who was ailing and was very ill. And I think she had either had raised him for a portion of his life or raised him up, and he went off to school, but he came back to be close to her. And, the NCAA was sticking to their guns about making him sit out a whole year. And finally, after like 4 weeks, they granted him the waiver, right? So there's been a number of issues that they've taken forever on, or just can't seem to get out of their way on. And then you have this seemingly, like, how often is this going to come up in a game, right? Is 50% of the games going to come down to a potential field goal with 6-7 seconds left, and you're going to throw an extra defender out there? Probably not. But they move like lightning on closing this loophole, but can't seem to tackle the other issues that would seem more urgent and important.
Just amazing, Andy. But you know what? I think this is one of the good things the NCAA has done.
Yeah.
The next piece that I want to talk about is how this is, again, the common theme of the evolution towards a commissioner, towards this NFL model. They've named a college football playoff executive director to usher in this new era of the playoffs.
Right.
And this guy,
the previous guy was retiring, though, so they did have somebody prior to. Bill Hancock was the chairman before. So yeah, he's retiring, and they're but to your point, it is a new era, right? It is a turning of the page in the playoff.
But Andy, this guy is Lieutenant General. I mean, he's experienced in leading the U.S. Air Force Academy as a 3-star general. He's a 4-year letterman for the Air Force football team. He's got a background in understanding of college football. He's a leader of men.
Yep.
And I mean, he also served in the U.S. Air Force as the Deputy Chief of Staff for Strategic Deterrence and Nuclear Integration at the Pentagon.
Sounds important.
Right? I mean, this guy's not going to be intimidated. He's a military man, and I think they've got someone that has integrity, and I'm hoping that he's able to use it the right way and make this thing successful.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. He's got the college football background, and he'll certainly have the leadership and the principles, I think, to wade through the morass of stuff you have to deal with, particularly in the college game, right? Particularly now with NIL and sponsors and boosters and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, hopefully he can keep clear line of sight and a North Star on where he's gonna partner with the conferences and certainly the media and the broadcasting companies to figure out what's best for the sport and ensure that the athletes get taken care of and are continue to able to play a game that is exciting and put a product on the field that the fans love to watch. So be interesting to see how it shakes up. But yeah, I agree. I think leader of men and principle and character is certainly is requisite for somebody sitting in that seat.
And Andy, the last thing is just, is somewhat sickening when we talk about the college football coaching salaries. And, we've always said the SEC has leading the way, but
Yeah.
they have this thing now called the $10 million club. And who's leading the club?
Yeah.
Kirby
There's only
Smart.
four. There's only
Right?
4 in there. Can you name the 4?
Yeah, I mean Kirby Smart at $13 million. Your boy Dabo, $11 million. Steve Sarkisian, who we both think is doing very well, at $10 million. And your boy Lincoln Riley, $10 million. That's in the SEC. Well, not SEC, but right.
Yeah, two in the SEC, 1 ACC, and 1 Big Ten. But yeah, $10 million, and Ryan Day is 50 G short, right?
I got Ryan Day at 10 million.
Yeah.
And I got the Bear at 10 million. I got Mike Norville at 10 million.
Yeah.
And Brian Kelly 25,000 short.
Yeah. Pretty it's staggering, man. It's pretty amazing. And a lot of that like I said about Riley, they forked out a ton of money to get him there. And it happens at the next level. And it's happened at A&M, right? It happened after last year, with the buyout there and the amount of money that they were willing to pay to make a change. So I suspect these programs are not above it. What's really interesting is to see, which again is refreshing. You and I have, I think both concurred that, not leveraging and utilizing the transfer portal. Like, how do you manage to stay successful? But, good on Dabo for sticking to his guns and, making 11 mil a year, and he's got them right in the hunt and potentially to win the ACC and be in the playoff. And we talked about this. I don't know if it was. I think it was. I don't know if it was online or offline, but the service academies don't take transfers, right? So they don't leverage the transfer portal, right? And those kids come there at the start. They're playing 4 years. There is no 5th year, 6th year, 7th year. And when they're done playing football, for most of them, a very small, very, very, very small number might go on to play in the NFL, but 99% of those kids are going to serve our country for 5+ years. So, the fact that Dabo is kind of stuck to his strategy, and I think everybody thought he was nuts after week 1, after they got pounded by Georgia, but he's stuck to it and has brought them right back into contention. And it'd be interesting to see if they and Miami end up in the ACC championship because they don't play in the regular season, but that could be a game, man.
But Andy, on the flip side, we just put up 2 6-packs of coaches of the year, and you notice that those coaches that we just rattled off in the 10 million club, none of them were on our list.
Well, yeah, we're talking coach of the year, right? So these guys eventually, like Lanning's he's at 8 million, right? Cristobal's right there. So, and Cristobal, they paid him a round, but he hasn't delivered much yet, right? Until this season. Last year was it was a debacle. Lanning is still, I think this year, if he continues on, last year, they lost twice to Washington. So still had a really good season, but I think you got to take that big step, man. You look at that top club, with the exception of kind of the top 5 or 8, but Kirby Smart, Dabo, who else we got here? Kelly. Those 3 guys playing for have been a part of national titles. I don't think Riley Lincoln. I don't think he did at Oklahoma, and Ryan Day has Ryan Day. He hasn't. Was he part of Meyer's staff when the
He
Buckeyes won?
was, yeah, years ago. I
Yeah,
think he was offensive coordinator there.
yeah, yeah. So anyhow, but I think these guys aren't far off some of the ones we named. Now I don't know if it's in there, but so Monken at West Point 2.3.
2.3, and how much is
Newberry's
Brian Newberry making?
Newberry's 1.8.
So these are values, right?
Yeah,
These people are undervalued coaches, and again, the model just stinks of the NFL bureaucracy and structure that you said is coming down, and we see it. It's coming to fruition.
yeah. Well, there are a lot of dollars, man, billions and billions of dollars in college football, particularly now, right? And it's only going to get bigger. And these guys, it's hard to argue they haven't put these schools on the map, with the exception of Riley. He hasn't done much so far, and Sarkisian's he's early in his success run. He's been good. They've been solid, but they haven't gotten to that next level. I guess last year they did make it to the semi. So, if he can put another good run together this year, then he's probably of any in recent past of Texas head coaches probably has fared the best. So.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
Yes.
all right, folks. Well, that's the wacky world of college football. We're gonna get to it here. Get to our feature bit of the show, but get into our picks here on Saturday. Sensei, we'll recap Week 8 for you, see how we fared, and see how we did, and how we're doing on the year, and then we are going to get to the games of the week. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with you. Back. It's pick time. It's big time. It's New York City kid time. T-shirt pick of the week this week. We've got the Irish and the Rolling Goats from Navy heading out to East Rutherford. So we'll get to that as our final pick. So if you just tuned in, you're gonna have to hold on until we get through the rest of them. But we're gonna start off early in the week. I think it's a Thursday night game, Mark. We'll get to Syracuse taking on Pitt, but quick rehash of last week. I was 12-6. Mark was at 14-4. I think that's 3 weeks in a row. You've gotten me, Mark, and we're now just one game separating us. 83-45 to 82-46. So this week could be a difference maker. So got to keep riding your wave of momentum. So we'll get started here Thursday night. Syracuse taking on Pitt. We'll start off with a banger, man. What do you like here?
Andy, I've been rolling the dice on Pitt all season. I'm not going to stop now, right?
Yep.
So I got the Panthers.
We got Pitt here, huh? I got to tell you, I think we're going to start off separating ways with game one, but Kyle McCord he's taken the Orangemen on the road, and he's had a few good games. I think the Cuse get it done and put the first L in the column for the Pitt Panthers. So I'm going with the Orange from Syracuse.
Wow. Right off the bat, Andy.
That's right. We're not pulling any punches this week, my friend. Next up, we got Louisville coming off that offensive shootout against Miami, taking on BOB and the Eagles, Boston College. Big backdrop in the ACC here. What do you got?
I like what he's doing at Boston College. He's building a nice program, but this Louisville team is a high flyer, man. And there's no way this Boston College defense contains him. Louisville beats him.
Yep, I'm taking the Cardinal as well. Taking the Cardinal on that one. Next up, if you're watching, we got Notre Dame Navy. We're going to come back to that one. Here we go, man. Getting back into some rivalry games sprinkled throughout the season, but Sparty heading into Ann Arbor to take on Big Blue. Interesting game. Sparty coming off a win over the Hawkeyes last weekend, and I called it. Wolverines traveled to Champaign-Urbana, the Fighting Illini handed them an L. So this could be an interesting game, Mark.
It was, and it was an ugly game. I watched that game too, and Illinois dominated. Michigan's got to beat this one in the Big House. They got to win at home. It's a rivalry game. I'm going to go with Michigan again.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Wolverines in this one at home. I think home gives them an edge. It is a rivalry game, so I think all bets are off. But I'm gonna have to tip my cap to the Wolverines in this one. Next up, this should be a really interesting Big Ten matchup. Now, we got to run the stats on this, but teams that have had to travel coast to coast or long distances have struggled. Many of them have lost. Others have barely hung on. But the Fighting Illini are heading from Central Illinois out to Autzen Stadium to take on the Ducks. Should be an interesting matchup here, Mark.
I can't see the Illini beating Oregon at home. I got the Ducks.
Taking the Ducks, huh? I'm going to go the Ducks too, but I think this is going to be a very close game. I think this one is going to. I think it's going to be a touchdown or less, and I think the Illini are going to give everything they have to Oregon. So, upset alert. Not calling the upset, but be on alert, Ducks fans. I think the Fighting Illini might roll into town and surprise you. So, Huskers coming off the beating from the Hoosiers and taking on the Buckeyes. What do you think here?
I can't see the Hoosiers beating the Hoosiers.
Huskers.
No,
Huskers.
that's right. Huskers. No. Ohio State. Ohio
Buckeyes.
State.
Yeah.
Buckeyes.
Buckeyes. I'm rolling Buckeyes 2 at home in the Horseshoe. Nebraska, after last week, I don't think they're going to find a magic potion, and I don't think the loss will find the Buckeyes. Next up, we got Penn State traveling to Camp Randall, take on Wisconsin Badgers.
I cannot not go with my boys, the Nittany Lions.
You love your Nittany Lions. I know.
I do. I just hope that they are able to play well in the playoff and get what they deserve. I don't think they're a national championship team, but I'd like to see them in the semifinal.
Yeah. If it weren't for that game against Northwestern last weekend with Wisconsin, I might have called the upset here. But prior to that, the prior 2 weeks, the Badgers had scored a combined 96 points. Last week's game was a bit mundane. They only put 23 up on the board. And I think one of the tutties was a defensive touchdown late in the first half. So I think Penn State gets it done on the road here and does it not in dominant fashion, but convincing. I think they win. So next one, big matchup, big road game for the Huskies. But as we talked about earlier, our brethren at College Game Day will be down in Bloomington. But Hoosiers fans selling out the Rock, and this could be an interesting game, Mark. What do you think? And remember, starting QB for IU is not playing.
I know. I did not know that until you told me. This is a tough game.
Yeah.
Does Washington go and win on the road? Is Indiana able to pull this off with their backup quarterback? Washington's not a bad team this year.
Well, remember Michigan rolled out there, and you and I both were I think the point difference, the spread in that game, I think Michigan might have been getting 1.5, and we were a little perplexed by that. And the Huskies beat the Wolverines pretty convincingly. Now, Michigan has since gone on and has lost to Illinois, and Washington is 500 team, I believe. So, it's a long trip from Washington, Seattle down to Bloomington, Indiana.
I'm going to go with Indiana, and the magic continues.
Wow, it's going Hoosiers. Well, I'm going to say the streak stops here, my friend. I'm going to say the Huskies roll into town. They get to an even 500 at 4-4, and they beat the IU Hoosiers. Don't want to see that happen. I'd love to see Hoosiers continue their streak, but I just think I'm not sure they have somebody that can step in and roll that offense like they've been rolling. So we'll take the Huskies. Next up, this is our surprise, we'll call it our Encyclopedia Britannica game of the week. You got to go and do your homework on this game. We got the Grizz from Montana rolling into northern Colorado to take on the Bears. FCS matchup. What do you think here, Mark?
These Grizzlies, they have a high-flying offense, Andy. They're scoring 30, 40, 50 points a game. Northern Colorado is not going to be able to contain them. Montana is going to beat them on the road. I love the Grizzlies.
Yep. Yeah, the Grizz are they're solid this year. They typically are. Usually a conference title contender, and Northern Colorado just won't have the horsepower, even though they're at home. So yeah, the Grizz on the road win convincingly. Another great matchup, my friend. Now this, I would venture to say, in week maybe 3, we would have said this game will probably be meaningless, right? Both these teams probably would have had 2 losses. Not a whole lot at stake. But boy, both these programs, LSU traveling into College Station to take on A&M, both 6-1, my friend, and leading the SEC, I might add, right? They're, I think, the undefeated teams, the only undefeated teams left in the SEC. So heavyweight battle for the top spot. What do you think here, Mark?
Andy, they both disappointed me earlier in the season. We talked about that. And now I'm faced with Texas A&M at home and LSU on the road. Ugh.
I know.
I got to go with the Aggies.
Wow, you're going Aggies at home, huh?
Yeah, the 12th man gets it done.
Very interesting. Well, let me see there. Yeah, 3-0 in the SEC. Both these teams are. So it's a big battle, huge game, huge game. Huge game.
Is this Saturday night?
Yeah, night game.
Yeah.
Under the lights.
Yeah.
I'm going Tigers. I think
Okay.
Nussbaum and I think Tigers get it done on the road. I think it'll be I don't know. I could see this game. I could see A&M stubbing their toe on this one and it just being them being a little flat. I hope it's a shootout and it goes right down the wire. But either way, I think the Tigers win on the road. So LSU remains undefeated and leading the SEC, which again, after that loss to USC to begin the season, particularly now after USC losing 3 straight to pretty mediocre Big Ten opponent. So
I agree.
next one up, albeit you wanted to ban them too late, my friend. We got them. Sooners heading down to the SIP to take on my boy Lane. What do you think here, man?
This is the last time I want to see Oklahoma on this board, Andy. Ole Miss all the way.
Yep. Ole Miss, I believe, will. I think they roll at home. So we'll see how that goes. So another interesting matchup here. Again, not as much at stake now that there would have been a couple weeks ago. But Tigers traveling to Tuscaloosa, Mizzou, taking on Bama.
Roll Tide, baby. Roll Tide.
I'm going Mizzou. I think.
Wow, Andy, you are all over the board today, man.
I'm going Tigers, man. I think again, despite that pedestrian victory over Auburn, I think they find a way to get it done. I think Bama's reeling a little bit, so I'm gonna go Missouri and as victorious in Tuscaloosa.
Andy, this next game was a Week 8 game.
Yeah, I know we didn't forgot to take it off the board, so
we'll just skip over it.
I'm picking Colorado.
34-7.
That's right. Texas heading into a place where dreams have gone to die this season, my friend. Texas going to Nashville, take on Vandy, who is ranked, by the way, number 25th in the country.
Thank you very much. Playing great ball, Andy, and they beat Bama. If Texas loses this game, they're in trouble, and they laid an egg last week. He's going to have them fired up. I think Texas kills Vandy. Texas.
Yeah, I'm going Texas too. I think they rebound. I don't think they fall into the same trap that Bama did. So it'd be hard pressed for Vandy to pull off two wins, Bama and Texas in the same year. But good on them if they get it done, boy. That'll be impressive. But I don't think Texas is going to let that happen. So another big rivalry game. Again, early season predictions and matchup. This would have been a different story, but here we are. Florida State sitting at 1-6, traveling down to Coral Gables and taking on the Canes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I assure you this is the last time you will see Florida State on this board.
We need to fire the guy that makes up the schedules every week.
I got the Canes. There's no way Florida State in this season that they're having beats this high-flying offense.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a massacre. I think the Canes are just I think they're going to roll the Seminoles. I think it's going to be ugly.
Yeah.
Canes in a big one. Next up, boy, I think if this game would have been last weekend, 2 weekends ago, I think we would have said BYU and let's move on. But UCF put it to Cyclones and took them down in the final 30 seconds. I'm still rolling Cougs, and again, it's on T-shirt, folks. So don't send the cancel hate mails or in the message boards. But BYU, my friend, I think they're victorious.
Yeah, I love him. I think he's great. I think they have some program. The coach we talked about.
Yeah,
I think their magic continues.
Yeah, I'm with you. Next up, Kansas and K-State. I believe this is at Arrowhead this weekend. So neutral sites.
Not Manhattan?
I'm pretty sure this game is being played at Arrowhead. So Jayhawks taking on the Wildcats. Again, another game. No, it says that Manhattan. So I thought this game was being played in, maybe it's Kansas, Iowa State. I think is who that is. Kansas, Iowa State, I think is playing in Arrowhead. But yeah, this game's in Manhattan. So Wildcats are at home in this one.
I love the Wildcats, Andy. I love them all year. I think they're gonna challenge Iowa State for the Big 12, and they may make the playoff. So I like them.
Yeah, I'm going Wildcats too. I think they take down the Jayhawks. Next one, boy, we talk about high flying, high offense. Good one out west this weekend. Boise State and the Broncos, and our boy Jeanty taking on the running Reds from UNLV.
This is a great game, Andy. There may be
Awesome.
100
Awesome.
points maybe
Easy.
scored in this game, right?
Yeah, might look like a basketball score when it's all said and done.
Yeah. This is a toss-up, but I'm going to go with the running Rebs at home.
Wow, he's going UNLV over the Bronx. Nobody can stop Jeanty. Nobody can stop him. We've been talking about this since week 1, I think it was.
Yep.
Week 2.
Week 1, week 2, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was week 2 because that's when they played Oregon, and he shredded that Ducks defense. So I'm sticking with my boy, and I'm sticking with the Broncos. I think Boise State gets it done on the road. So that brings us to our last game, folks, the T-shirt pick of the week. You did not fare so well last week, my friend. Picked the Longhorns, and like a lot of us did, and got denied on that one. This game, the game of the week, T-shirt pick of the week on Saturday. Sensei this week, like we said, is the Fighting Irish traveling east to East Rutherford. This is a home game for the midshipmen from Navy. They always typically play on when it's a home game for Navy. They play these at neutral sites so they can get a larger crowd. Navy Marine Corps Stadium does not hold 60,000 plus. I think this is going to be a very well attended game. And boy, Notre Dame has certainly bounced back after the shocker to Northern Illinois early in the season. We all know where Navy's been and what they've done so far. And my pick, Mark, for this, again, won't surprise some, but I'm going with the Goats, man. I think Navy gets it done against Notre Dame. Close game, but they figure out a way to fight through and keep that offense rolling. So I'm going Navy.
Andy, this is going to be a classic, Andy. And every year Notre Dame plays Navy, and Notre Dame pounds Navy into the ground, and Navy just whimpers away. Well, my friend, this year is going to be different.
That's right,
we
Navy.
Love the Goats.
That's right, Navy. Nice, love it. Yeah, I think should be a fantastic game. Noon Eastern, I think Saturday. But Another great slate, my friend. Another series of good picks. We hope all of you, again, listening, watching, are staying informed, entertained, following along, tracking your picks, and we continue to kindle the passion around college football. So thanks for tuning in. That's a wrap on on week 9. Next week, we will likely get our first look at the Saturday Sensei's glimpse into the college football playoff. Next week or the week before, we'll finalize that, but tune in for what Mark and I think is going to shape out with the top 12, and we'll have another great slate of games for everybody. So thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.